Hello guys and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me Vulcan. Today I have for you Gonzo versus Herr Robert in game 2 of 2 games in the European Steel Division League. This is of course Code S, both of these players being top tier, and if you haven't already, make sure you go check out the first game between these two players because it was absolutely awesome. It was like a full 40-minute game where there were some decisive points which really made all the difference, and it was really fun to watch. In this one, we are seeing Point de Hoc, and on the Allied side, the first SSB under command of Gonzo, something we've seen him use before. And on the Axis side, the 9th Panzer for Herr Robert, which is interesting. It's a little bit of deja vu. We see sort of Gonzo on the first SSB, again against the 9th Panzer. Of course it's Herr Robert instead of Eugen, so there will be differences in strategy. The map will also change that as well, since this is not Hill 112, it is Point de Hoc, and both of those maps have very different terrain. Of course Hill 112 has elevation and more open areas, whereas Point de Hoc is very close quarters and hedgerow based, so that's something that's going to be interesting to watch out for. Let's have a look at some of these units going down though. Of course the SSB, it does have its elite infantry, so that's something we have to look out for and something that Gonzo did rely on a lot previously. He's got some tank busters in there. I expect to see a lot of those since they can really exploit these hedgerows and tree lines. There is going to be a Sherman 2 DD at the start. That's going to be accompanied by lots of infantry here. These could be Commando supports, Commando 6 squads, Commando Fusilier Marines, all that good stuff. You got some maybe Commando scouts in there, and also of course the Commando leader. Further down it's going to be the tank busters, some infantry and the command, and on the very bottom side just tank busters and an infantry squad to hold the front line forwards. On the side of Herr Robert, it looks like he's going for a very concentrated mid-push with a Panzer 1C leading the charge with 2 Panzer 2 Lux and a Befehl Panzer 2C. So the interesting sort of 20mm autocannon combo that I haven't seen used in a very long time. Often I've seen the 9th Panzer used with the Marders, but of course the map is definitely going to affect what sort of strategy is used, and where a lot of the engagements are going to be close range, these 20mm autocannons will definitely do a lot of damage. But accompanying those is going to be a Panzer Schreck. There is some spear troop in the half track there, also some infantry with another Panzer Schreck following up. We've got some infantry for the top side, some infantry for the mid, and then we have more infantry for the bottom side. That's just going to be Panzergrens across the board most likely. So interesting that the Sherman 2 is going to the exact same place as these Panzers, and that could be really bad news for Herr Robert because the Sherman 2 is like the perfect tank for dealing with these 20mm autocannon units. So we'll have to wait and see if that actually comes to pass, whether these units attack each other or Herr Robert maybe tries to avoid the Sherman and push elsewhere because it is in that mid position. But currently, Herr Robert's just going straight in with those forces. You can see the fast move command on this bottom side. The Panzer 1C is just going to be pushing very aggressively as well. It does have the recon to help it spot infantry, but as you can see, here comes the Panzer 2s, and well, they're going to do a lot of damage, but the scouts are getting the smoke down there. Very important to cover a lot of these forces which don't actually have AT. You got 2 Commando Fusilier Marines in there, Commando Leader, Commando 6 and the Scouts, and well, all of those combined do not have a single piece of AT, which is really bad. So you can see that the Fusilier Marines getting chewed up there by the main gun of the Panzer 1 and of course the Panzer 2 Lux as well. The Spätrupp in the half track have not unloaded, but this half track of course it has a machine gun, so that's going to be helping out. It looks like the Panzergrens tried to run through there and ended up on the wrong side of an engagement with the commando leader. Took a grenade to the face and job done. Commando Fusilier Marines though really didn't fend very well during that engagement. They're down to 4 and 3 men respectively. There is of course the Sherman 2 here, but with 2 Panzer Schrecks in the way, This could turn into an awful bait that Gonzo might just fall straight into. These scouts, however, are going to end up spotting the Panzer, and that's incredibly important. Keeping these scouts alive is going to be just the key, really, here, so that this Sherman 2 does not get ambushed. But it looks like Herr Robert is going to go for the avoidance strategy. He knows that he cannot really fight the Sherman 2 straight up, and therefore just avoiding it entirely is probably a good idea. So he's going to use the Panzer Grenadiers here to reveal infantry in this town. Then with them supported, he can try and avoid getting hit by these commando tank busters or whatever else would be here with some AT. So that's kind of what he's looking for right now. On this top side we can see that one of the Panzer is already dead. This one will soon be, especially with the advance of the Commando Fusilier Marines. Spähstruppe aren't really fending very well against the Scouts and the Sherman 2 with all of its machine guns. So it looks like an engagement is going to be going well in favour of Gonzo soon in the mid here. But on this bottom side, one thing we have missed is that the Panzer 1 did get taken out by Commando Tank Busters, and that has allowed these Willys MMGs to find a salient on the bottom side. Now we do see that the Panzer Grenadiers, as they got closer to these buildings, ended up getting surrendered, which is very important because removing that infantry unit basically blinds these Panzer 2s, and now he can't be sure that moving up to these buildings is a safe bet. It's pretty likely that there is going to be some commando tank busters here, and that's something that Herr Robert's going to have to worry about. Now in the mid, Herr Robert has decided to invest in a Marder 3, and this is a really good choice to pick off the Sherman 2 at range. If it gets into the right position, this could be absolutely perfect. Currently it is not, because it's kind of blocked off by this tree line quite badly. Whereas if it moved down to maybe these bushes, so it's still in cover, or even further down, it would probably be better, because then the Sherman 2 can't engage at the 1000 meter range, which is very important when it comes to those sort of engagements, because an 11 AP gun's going to pin a 2 armor vehicle a lot quicker than a 13 AP gun is going to pin a 9 armor vehicle. That's if they don't just one-shot each other. Either way, Commando Tank Busters, they're going to be trying to pick off that 251, but the engagements so far at the start of this game have really severely fallen in favour of Gonzo, and that's something that you can expect with the first SSB. I mentioned this before, that the SSB are extremely strong in Phase A. They have the Sherman 2s to support all of their very strong infantry. Like, if the 6th Airborne, for example, had access to Shermans in Phase A, they'd be absolutely unstoppable. But with the 6th Airborne, you just have Tetrarchs. Whereas this is like a much more significant armour presence that you have to rely on. And you've seen just how quickly those Sherman 2s can rip through infantry squads. And as long as you have them supported by recon, then you shouldn't let them get ambushed by Panzer, and that's exactly what Gonzo's done. So really smart unit composition has helped Gonzo massively at the start of this game. Bringing in these Marders may have been a nice idea early on, but you can't guarantee where the Sherman 2s are going to be. So I really like sort of Herr Robert's strategy of trying to be a bit more mobile. But as we can see, like, I think these Panzer 2s have kind of just come back down to the bottom side to cut this off. But he's having trouble, like, advancing with these, and you can see Gonzo now just sneaking up with the Commando Tank Busters is making things very difficult for Herr Robert to just have any form of armor on the map. Let's see if these Piats do the job. That was a hell of a shot there. A very, very long range. Ended up being just over 200 meters. Cracking shot indeed. Now the Wildcat going to be coming in. That's going to bomb the Marder 3, allowing the Sherman 2s to push up. And as the Sherman 2s come into line of sight, it's going to give them a huge advantage, with that Marder 3 being one shot away from being pinned down. Really, really smart play there from Gonzo. We've seen it before. The Wildcats certainly making the difference. They may only have 5 HE power bombs, but if they hit the mark, then they can definitely pin down the units they're aimed at. So Sherman 2's coming in hot, and this Marder 3 hasn't quite been spotted yet, so in a pretty smart position here, and making sure that that is not moved out of the way is very nice. But look at this, Gonzo coming in with the fire position, getting the HE shells next to the Marder 3, just so that it retains its suppression. Really, really smart play. Sherman 2, that's going to be almost pinned down by the MU-109 G2 BR-21, but not quite. Wildcat's going to come in with the bombs to pin down that Marder 3 for good. Now the Panzer II-C has come around the corner, and I can't help but feel that this is just trying to be a distraction so that the Marder 3 can retreat in time. It seems to have done the job so far, and yep, the Marder 3 is out of there. The Panzer II-C just taking that shot to make sure that the Marder 3 did not. So nice job there by Herr Robert. Now the Wildcat's trying to get onto the back of this MU-109 as the dogfight continues, but you could see how much less units Herr Robert has on the field right now compared to Gonzo, and that is definitely going to become a very big problem. But these Sherman 2s, they're also both going to end up firing at the Marder 3. That Marder 3 goes down, and now all that Herr Robert really has left in Phase 8 is just a second Marder 3, and with the dominance of these Wildcats being a thing, it's going to make it very difficult for the Marder 3s to stay their position and get shots onto these Sherman 2s. I'm pretty sure Gonzo just won't allow it to happen. Also, elsewhere, without support, these Panzer Grenadiers are not in a fantastic position, although they might end up killing some Commando Fusilier Marines. Commando Tank Busters have been found here by some Panzer Grenadiers. Be good if the Panzer Grenadiers could kill that off, and then the Panzer 1 and Panzer 2 looks can make a lot of ground. This is the sort of thing that Herr Robert needs to do in order to maintain an even game moving into Phase B. Of course, Gonzo is massively ahead right now. He's got the +2, almost a +3. But you'll see that the income swings completely in favour of Herr Robert, with Gonzo actually losing 20 points per minute and Herr Robert gaining 40, which is a huge difference. So something that Herr Robert might be able to exploit with things like Panzer IVs, say, in Phase B. Of course, the Commando Tank Busters being everywhere is a big problem though, and something that Herr Robert is going to have to deal with, probably with some sort of recon, obviously, to find those tank busters in the first place and stop them from being an issue. The only problem that I can see is that with Gonzo having such a big lead already, is that it's going to take time to push Gonzo back. So regardless of whether or not Herr Robert has the right units to make the push, he might not just have the time. And that's pretty unlucky there. The Marder 3 ends up bouncing off the front of the Sherman 2. That could have very easily been a one-shot kill since it did hit. And that's just unfortunate for Herr Robert that it wasn't the case, because whittling down some of those Sherman 2s now would be the perfect time to do it. But incoming we have a new Commando Tank Buster squad. I think Herr Robert's well aware of that being the case. He's going to absolutely smash to pieces the Commando support though. Commando Tank Busters, will they move into the tree line here and get the job done? We'll have to wait and see. Double Wildcat going to be getting involved. Look at there we go. Commando Tank Busters. Oh, they get the job done. If they'd missed, then that Panzer 1 would have had them for dinner. But there we go. Wildcats coming in once again. They end up bombing the Panzer Grenadiers, going to force them back. Do you see that the Panzer Grenadier ended up killing off the Jeep down here? Panzer II Lux is still holding this salient, but if that gets cut off, it puts Herr Robert in a very bad situation. The Panzer II, though, probably shouldn't let that happen, so he will be alright. Having these Panzer Grens move out of the way doesn't mean that the Wildcats will miss their target. But here we have a Panzer IV-H. It's coming in. It's one of the artillery variants. Nice unit, actually, for both engaging the Shermans, but also providing that support versus enemy infantry. So an interesting choice. He's just got to make sure that it doesn't get popped at close range versus a Sherman, and that's going to be the hardest thing. We can see that Commando supports ended up killing off the Panzer Grenadiers down here, and that's now cut off the Panzer II that was holding the salient. So +3 in favour of Gonzo. Panzer Grenadiers may kill off some of the Commando Tank Busters here, but losing this much ground early on is just incredibly punishing. So off map, it's going to try and pin this Sherman 2. Then after that is done, the Panzer IV can try and go in for the close range engagement. Even if the Sherman II just takes half morale damage, it does give the advantage to the Panzer IV because it's unlikely, or at least less likely, for the Sherman II to hit its first shot, whilst at that range, the Panzer IV, if it is not affected, will be more likely to hit its first shot. So this is a really nice vehicle actually for sort of ensuring these engagements go in his favour. So I kind of like the choice of unit. I'm just not sure it's going to be enough to bring back the game at this point. You know, +3, 73%, the aggressive playstyle of Gonzo really paying off here. And although he's going to have a limited amount of Sherman 2s throughout the entire game, they've done their job, right? They found the ground already, and that's just incredibly important. So this Panzer IV, it needs to try and kill off the Sherman 2 if it can. It actually gets the driver wounded onto this Sherman 2, which is really nice. Off-map's going to end up landing on the second Sherman 2 there. Really smart placement of that off-map, honestly, from Herr Robert. Needs to just make sure that he kills off this first Sherman 2, though, if he can. Okay, he's actually aiming at the second one. Ideally, you want to aim at the one closer if you can, because you have a much higher chance of penetration. Herr Robert has changed the targeting by the looks of things to shoot at the one closer. So we might see a kill. There we go. One of the Sherman 2s going down. Do have infantry coming in to the mid and bottom side to just hold the line. But with Sherman 5s now coming in onto the field in Phase B, things continue to get difficult. Because although Herr Robert does have access to the Panzer IVs, like, Sherman 5s are actually pretty decent against Panzer IVs at close range, so it's sort of like one of those things. Yes, okay, Herr Robert has the income and can buy one of these Panzer IVJs, like, he can buy one a minute, which is actually quite a lot. But whether or not that's going to be enough remains to be seen. You can see that Herr Robert is very desperate here to make back some ground, because at the moment, it's just looking so far in Gonzo's favour, and if he doesn't break this +4, it's over in 3.5 minutes, so that's really bad. But killing off that command is a start, and one way he could make back a lot of ground quickly is just encircling this top side, so definitely something he could try and do. But while that's going on, there is of course the Sherman 5 breaking through on the bottom side, and responding with the Panzer II looks is probably not the best idea. It would have been better to wait that minute and then just bring in a Panzer IVJ or something. The issue with Panzer IVJs on a map like Point de Hoc, though, is that they have much lower aim time than the M4s or the Sherman 2s, and that is of course a problem. But this Panzer IV with the veterancy absolutely smashing that Sherman 2. There's now one left on this top side. Sherman 5s, however, dominating the bottom side. Stug 3 has been brought in. 2-star veterancy, can put up a big fight, but 2 minutes and a half left on the clock, and you can see that although Herr Robert is making some ground here, how long that lasts remains to be seen. So 250-10, going to be engaging the Commando 6 there, trying to take that out. Panzer IVJ going to be able to take an engagement with the Sherman 2 at close range. Sherman 5s waiting to engage the Panzer IV at close range. This half track will likely be taken out by the Sherman 5, which is not ideal. But with the MU-109 hitting the Sherman 5, he's just trying to open that up for the Stug 3 engagement. Here we go, Sherman 5. Look how quickly that aims. Ender destroy onto the Panzer IV. And the Panzer IV was just not prepared. I think it was facing the wrong way, and it was starting to turn round, as you can see. Ended up taking a side shot, and that's just not ideal at all. It's gone. Panzer IV's down. Regardless of what kills come in at this point, Gonzo's pretty much sealed the deal. He's going to have found the 2,500 points he needs before Phase C. That is absolutely insane. Just a smashing victory here for Gonzo. Used everything he needed. Brought in these Wildcats. Lovely 125 point light bombers doing the job. You can see they pin down these Martyrs so easily. And that's just a massive problem. And here the Pioneers not quite in the right spot to stop these commando tank busters, taking out one of his tanks. 50 seconds left on the clock. Sherman 5's going to end up coming around the corner, out-aiming the Panzer IV-J quite easily. On this bottom side, the Panzer went down, the Panzer II Lux that is, and also the Sturg at close range, the commando tank busters covering the Sherman 5 there. So that Panzer IV is gone, Marder 3's left in the open, pinned down. It's going to be surrounded as well, which is going to really make it difficult to fall back. And Herr Robert officially has 3 units on the map, and after what was an incredible first game between these two, it seems as though Gonzo has got the better of Herr Robert. Going to be going for the kill onto the Marder 3 there, finds it with the commando tank busters. The game ends, and what a dominating performance by Gonzo. Wow, incredible stuff. He is on top of his game right now and on top of the league. Gonzo sits with many a victory to his name this season, and is looking at the moment to take the victory, or at least the first place in the league, which is pretty nice. At 17 minutes and 59 seconds, we reach the 2,500 point mark for Gonzo. 1,865 kills to 760 losses. I reckon we're going to be seeing a lot more first SSB in the coming days after this week, where I've sort of casted 2 games where Gonzo has absolutely annihilated with the division. But it's all about just knowing how to play it. It's a lot like the 116th, right? Gonzo came in with the 116th. He basically taught everyone how to play it. He used the recon aircraft that no one thought was useful. He then just absolutely dominated with that division, and then other people started playing it. And I think it's going to be the same with the first SSB, and I absolutely love it. Like, just throwing in these meta breakers is just awesome, because the 9th Panzer is generally perceived to be quite a strong competitive division. But in this case, the first SSB is almost a counter, because you've got the Wildcats to kill off the Marder 3s, or at least bomb the Marder 3s. And then you have the Shermans that you need to take on the 20mm autocannon units. So both the Marders and the Panzers are all neutralized in Phase A, allowing your Sherman 2 to pretty much have free reign and support your elite infantry that basically trumps anything that the 9th Panzer has. So Herr Robert, going into this, is generally in a very tough spot in Phase A. If he can make it through to Phase B without taking too much damage or losing too much ground, then there is obviously that chance of coming back. And we did slightly see it, especially with that choice of the off-map Panzer IV. Really interesting strategy, using the off-map to actually hit the tanks, especially behind the tree lines, so that they are then pinned down before you engage them. I really like that idea. It's really smart. So make sure you guys use that yourself. It's an awesome idea. I always thought of like the Panzer IV off-map, or off-map in general, being good for like AT, or like killing AT or killing infantry, or at least pinning down the two, rather than using it on tanks. I've never really thought of that before. Maybe some of you guys had actually done so, but either way, I've never seen it in a competitive game before, and it's very interesting indeed. So lots of lovely new stuff in these games, and it's nice to finally have something refreshing and like some just new strategies, and I've really enjoyed casting these games lately. So anyway, let's have a look through these kills quite quickly. The Commando Tank Busters really showed up in this game. They killed the Panzer IV-J there. You can see they killed the Panzer II Lux and the Befehl Panzer II-C. The Sherman 2 killing the Marder 3 is obviously very nice, but it was pinned down by the Wildcats, so let's not forget about those. Sherman 5s in the late game just dominated that bottom side. They really did. Out-aimed the Panzer IV-Js all day long. Sherman 2 early on, cleaning up the Panzer 1, leads the way for all of this infantry to come through and actually do damage. And the Commando Fusilier Marines ended up taking out 2 Panzer squads with the help of this scout. This scout was so vitally important, and keeping that alive under the smoke was just really well played by Gonzo. In terms of losses, Panzer Grenadiers came in here and there. The Panzer II Lux, did pick up kills onto some infantry in this Befehl Panzer II-C, of course. This off-map Panzer IV, you can see that it did end up killing 2 Sherman 2s, and that is exactly what you want to see. So great job by Herr Robert to get that to happen. It's just a shame that the map was already really in favour of Gonzo at that point. Either way, that's where I'm going to leave it. I actually think that was a very, very fun game to watch. Just solidifies Gonzo's strategies with the first SSB, and I think we all enjoy watching that. And of course, some creative stuff coming out of Herr Robert as well. So great games, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.